Good evening, hello and welcome to the news today, your primetime destination news, newsmakers, talking points, plenty to talk about. We have some breaking news that's coming in shortly. The Congress has pulled up Shashi Tharoor, allegedly because he's taken a stand in support of the Modi government on Operation Sindoor. We'll find out more details in a moment, but our big focus today, Donald Trump now proposes a Modi Sharif dinner. Is Trump more a deal maker than a statesman? How should India be handling Donald Trump? That's the question that we're going to raise. Top diplomats and voices from India and Washington will join us. News without the noise. We bring you the news without the sensation. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. The Madhya Pradesh High Court directs a suo motu FIR against the Madhya Pradesh Minister Vijay Shah, who insulted Colonel Sophia Qureshi. High Court says minister promoting religious enmity. Opposition asked that the minister be sacked right away. Pakistan appeals to India over Indus water, urges India to reconsider Indus water treaty decision, says treaty abeyance could trigger a crisis in Pakistan. Massive ammunition haul after Shopian encounter, weapons of 3 slain Lashkar terrorists recovered, bullets, automatic weapons and grenades are seized. BSF Jawan PK Shaw released by Pakistan after 20 days. Celebrations erupt in the Jawan's ancestral village in Bengal. Call to boycott tourism in Turkey and Azerbaijan intensifies. Indian travel sites see 60% surge in cancellation, 250% dip in bookings over Turkey's military support to Pakistan in the conflict. India slams China for renaming parts of Arunachal Pradesh, says creative naming won't change undeniable reality, adds Arunachal is and will be an inalienable part of India. Justice B.R. Gavai is sworn in as the 52nd Chief Justice of India. The new CJI will be serving for a tenure of 6 months. And 31 Naxals killed in a 21-day action at Kare Gotalu Hills in Chhattisgarh. Historic breakthrough, claims Home Minister Amit Shah. And after Saudi Arabia inks an arms deal of $142 billion, Qatar now signs a $200 billion pact to buy 160 jets from Boeing during Trump's visit. Deal marks the largest jet order in Boeing's history. The US also lifts sanctions on Syria. But the big story that we are breaking this evening, Congress sources now telling us that their senior MP from Thiruvananthapuram, Shashi Tharoor, has been pulled up. Congress saying that Tharoor has crossed a Lakshman Rekha. This comes, remember, a day after Tharoor told India Today on this very show that he supported the way the Prime Minister had prosecuted Operation Sindoor. Congress, meanwhile, is to launch a nationwide Jai Hind Yatra a day after the BJP decided to set up a Tiranga Yatra. Congress has now demanded an all-party meeting chaired by the Prime Minister and reiterated its call for a special session of Parliament on the recent Indo-Pak conflict. What's been happening? First, listen into what Jairam Ramesh said on Shashi Tharoor.
वो उनकी राय है. जब थरूर साहब बोलते हैं वो पार्टी की राय नहीं होती है. वो उनकी राय है. जब थरूर साहब बोलते हैं वो पार्टी की राय नहीं होती है.
When Shashi Tharoor speaks, it's his personal opinion, not that of the party. Maushmi Singh, who tracks the Congress, now joins me. Maushmi, I'm going to play in a bit the interview that Shashi Tharoor gave us yesterday only, where he was again fulsome in his praise for Prime Minister Modi. But tell us what happened at this Congress meeting.
Rajdeep, I can tell you that Shashi Tharoor was actually questioned in the meeting because his recent remarks, the Congress party has seen it as being an explanation for on behalf of the Indian government, and they feel that Shashi Tharoor has amplified what PM Modi stopped short of in his speech, thereby saying that India would never broker a deal with US in the picture. India would never get a ceasefire with US intervention, and US will land an egg with an egg on its face, where India would never agree to a tri-party meeting. So the Congress really feels the questions that the opposition was asking were answered by not the government, but in fact by repeated interviews given by Dr. Tharoor there. And in fact, one of the leaders also commented that this time round, Shashi Tharoor had actually crossed the Lakshman Rekha. One leader said that this was the time when you should amplify the party's position and not give personal opinions. So this time round, even if you see that in the press briefing, Jairam Ramesh distanced the party's position from what Dr. Tharoor had to say. So party feels that it is a lot of embarrassment caused to the party.
Moshmi, I'm just stopping you. I'll come back to you in a moment because let's hear what Shashi Tharoor told us yesterday, and then I'll come back to Moshmi Singh. Listen in to what Shashi Tharoor told us when I asked him specifically about his stand on Operation Sindoor and the allegation that he was being an apologist for the Modi government. So listening to you, I get a sense that you're giving Narendra Modi and his government 10 on 10 or 9.5 on 10 for both the way they conducted Operation Sindoor, handled the Pahalgam attack, and even handled the world diplomatically. There are others who are questioning, even in your own party, whether Mr. Modi has allowed Kashmir to get internationalized, whether to allow an American president to announce a ceasefire between India and Pakistan is setting a dangerous precedent. Am I to understand that you're giving 9.5 or 10 out of 10 to Prime Minister Modi, which is unusual, remember, for an opposition leader to do so?
Rajdeep, it's not my place to award marks to anybody, let alone my betters, let alone the head of our government. So I'm not awarding any marks for anybody. All I'm saying right now is I believe that the matters that were under our control, namely how to conduct this operation, including its naming it, its presentation of it, the information briefings, all that were very well done. If you ask me whether Mr. Trump announcing this ceasefire was a good idea, it was a terrible idea. But if you're implying that we could have controlled it, or that perhaps a chief minister from another, a prime minister from another party could have controlled Mr. Trump better, well, I'm very happy to wish you good luck in doing that, Rajdeep. I think this is a gentleman who escapes such easy control. And therefore, I don't know whether it's entirely appropriate to score political points off Mr. Trump's shoulders, because Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump. And I don't think anybody in any foreign country is able to control what he does and how he does it. All I can say is that India has to make it very clear to the world, to Mr. Trump, to the Pakistanis, and to the Indian public, whether we're going to do what Mr. Trump implies we're going to do. And I think it's already become very clear we're not.
Moshmi, as you can see, that while Shashi Tharoor wasn't giving marks to the Modi government right through the interview, he was fully in support with the way the government has handled the entire Operation Sindoor. What's the sense you're getting? Is this, when the Congress says Tharoor has crossed a Lakshman Rekha, there are Kerala elections 6 to 8 months from now. Mr. Tharoor is an important figure there. Is the Congress asking Shashi Tharoor to now simply not speak out of turn? What does the Congress really want Shashi Tharoor to do?
Rajdeep, even in your interview, if you see that Dr. Tharoor ends up with the fact that whether we are giving in to what the US wants, and he's stating it that we are not. So this is actually, in point stating the Indian government's position. And I don't want to read between the lines, but Dr. Tharoor left the meeting a bit early, saying that he had a flight to catch to his constituency. And, last time round, post the Pahalgam terror attack, he shared the stage with Prime Minister Modi, and PM said that, many leaders will lose their sleep over this. And, it's been brewing for some time round from the Russia-Ukraine war, his comments on during that time, and his praise of the Modi government time and again. So I think this is the time that they want to pull a stop to what Shashi Tharoor is saying and stop giving him that leeway that it's a democratic party, you can just say anything, because they believe that coming from Dr. Tharoor, it is damaging the party irreparably, while Dr. Tharoor is only catering to his audience on the social media and to his own constituency.
Okay, let's leave it there. Clearly, Shashi Tharoor, very popular figure in certain sections, has also won the admiration of the BJP, but those within his own party feel Dr. Tharoor is only speaking for himself, doesn't follow the party line on specific issues. So we'll see how that plays out, but Maushmi Singh, thanks very much for joining us. Now, that's the problem that the Congress has. The BJP has another problem, because one of its Madhya Pradesh ministers, Vijay Shah, is in the eye of a real storm. Today, the Madhya Pradesh High Court has now ordered the police to file an FIR against the minister for his derogatory, communal and sexist remarks against Colonel Sophia Qureshi, who became the face of the government's media outreach during Operation Sindoor. The Congress has urged the BJP to sack the minister who questioned Sophia Qureshi's religious identity. Here is a report that embarrasses the BJP this time.
Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh became the face of the defense forces, holding daily media briefings during the India-Pakistan conflict last week. Two women from two different faiths. The message was simple: India is united against terror. Now, a Madhya Pradesh minister's statement referring to Colonel Sophia Qureshi has sparked a row.
जिन्होंने हमारी बेटियों के सिंदूर उजाड़े थे, वही कटे पिटे लोगों को हमने उन्हीं की बहन भेज करके उनकी ऐसी की तैसी करवाई। उन्होंने कपड़े उतार के हमारे हिंदुओं को मारा, और मोदी जी ने उनकी बहन को उनकी ऐसी की तैसी करने हमारे जहाज से उनके घर आए।
The Congress staged protest demanding the minister's sacking.
उनकी बहन को हमने भेजा, मतलब किसकी बहन को भेजा? आतंकवादियों की बहन को भेजा या किसके लिए कहा? ऐसे मंत्री को अभी इसी वक्त पद त्यागना चाहिए। नरेंद्र मोदी जी से मेरा आग्रह है, विजय शाह जी की जो भाषा थी, जो उनका बयान था, बिल्कुल गैर जिम्मेदाराना है। मैं मानता हूं ये बयान भारतीय जनता पार्टी को स्पष्ट करना पड़ेगा कि ये भाषा, ये भाव, ये विजय शाह के थे या बीजेपी के थे, और अगर विजय शाह के थे तो अभी इस्तीफा लो उनसे।
वही कटे पिटे लोगों को।
The minister initially defended the statement.
कुछ मेरे भाषण को अलग संदर्भ में ना देखें, अगर जो अलग संदर्भ में देख रहे हैं वो मैं उनसे कहना चाहता हूं कि वो उस संदर्भ में नहीं है, वो हमारी बहनें हैं, उन्होंने बहुत ताकत से सेना के साथ मिलकर उसको बदलेगा।
As political heat mounted, Vijay Shah backtracked.
हम लोग मिलिट्री का और सोफिया बहन का अपमान का सोच भी नहीं सकते। हमारी सगी बहन से ज्यादा और जाति समाज से ऊपर उठ करके उन्होंने देश और समाज के लिए जो काम किया है, उनको मैं सैल्यूट करता हूं। अगर उनको या किसी को भी मेरे उन बातों से कोई दुख हुआ हो तो मैं 10 बार क्षमा मांगता हूं।
The Madhya Pradesh High Court stepped in on Wednesday, ordering an FIR against Vijay Shah. The minister's statement has triggered an unwarranted controversy at a time when the country has put up a united front against Pakistan-sponsored terror. Bureau Report, India Today.
I have only 3 words to describe what the minister said. Shameful, shameful, shameful. Vijay Shah's apology, frankly, is an apology of an apology. And he and his party must think as to how they can actually damage control the situation. Now, someone else whom the government may have to deal with is US President Donald Trump, who again has reiterated his claim that he brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan by using trade as a tool. Trump's comments come after India has on more than one occasion rejected the claim and asserted that trade was never discussed during any conversation with the US leaders during the India-Pakistan conflict. The MEA claimed that the ceasefire was only agreed upon after Pakistan's DGMO asked for it. Either way, Trump's comments are proving to be an embarrassment for the Modi government and raise the question, how does one deal with Donald Trump? We'll be joined by top diplomats in a moment, but first, take a look at the story.
My administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan, and I used trade to a large extent to do it. I said, fellas, come on, let's make a deal. Let's do some trading. Let's not trade nuclear missiles. Let's trade the things that you make so beautifully.
U.S. President Donald Trump strikes again. Speaking in the presence of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Tuesday, Trump claimed he brokered the ceasefire between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, India and Pakistan, repeating what he said a day ago.
We helped a lot, and we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it.
Trump also offered to mediate the Kashmir dispute. India has dismissed these assertions. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reinforced India's long-held position. Kashmir is not up for discussion. He stressed that India and Pakistan can only have a dialogue on terror and return of POK.
हमारी घोषित नीति रही है, अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो टेररिज्म पर ही होगी। अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पीओके उस पर ही होगी।
India has firmly rejected the idea that American pressure played any role.
From the time of Operation Sindoor commenced on 7th May, till the understanding on cessation of firing and military action on 10th May, there were conversations between Indian and US leaders on the evolving military situation. The issue of trade did not come up in any of these discussions.
The opposition, however, is demanding the Modi government come clean on Trump's claims.
क्या हमने अमेरिका की जो मीडिएशन बार-बार आज फिर राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने दोहराया है, तो इस पर प्रधानमंत्री चुप क्यों है? मार्को रूबियो की वक्तव्यों और बयानों पर हमारे विदेश मंत्री जो दुनिया भर की बातें बोलते हैं, प्रवचन देते रहते हैं प्रधानमंत्री के माफिक, इस पर क्यों चुप है?
Trump's repeated statements taking credit for the ceasefire between India and Pakistan has hit a sour note in New Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
So is Donald Trump ending up only embarrassing the Narendra Modi government with his repeated comments that he brokered the ceasefire and trade was an issue? Is Donald Trump at the end of the day more of a deal maker than a statesman? How serious should one take Trump's mediation bids in the first place? And how should the Modi government handle Donald Trump? Today, I'm happy to be joined by two top diplomats this country has had. Navteej Sarna, former Indian ambassador to the United States and Israel, among other top posts he's held. And TCA Raghavan is former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, written extensively on the subcontinent. I appreciate both of you joining us. Let me come to you, Mr. Sarna, first, because you've served in the United States. Now you've got a president who time and again in every public fora in the last 72 hours claims he is the one who brokered the ceasefire and that he did it by offering a trade deal effectively to both sides. Something that India has rejected, but he keeps talking about it. How does one handle Donald Trump?
Well, thank you, Rajdeep. A pleasure to be here with you. I think those who have seen Trump 1.0 should not be too surprised. He said the same thing about mediation on Kashmir, standing next to Imran Khan in July 2019. And thereafter, after the abrogation of 370, etc., he never mentioned it again. Today, I think in Trump 2.0, hyperbole has become a habit. with Mr. Trump. And I think India has made its position clear as much as it can without personally attacking him. I don't think we want to personally attack him, but our spokesman's position has been very clear on both the mediation aspects as well as the fact that trade was not talked about. All I want to say here is that, our position has to be clear. And we have to get a way of getting back Mr. Trump on track. And that, I'm sure, our diplomatic establishment can easily do. He has to be brought back to talking terror. And this is something which we have to handle. But it doesn't mean that we have succumbed to the so-called mediation on this issue, because even if you, for a moment, think of what if phone calls were exchanged, it means an end to hostilities. It does not mean pressure, and it does not mean mediation in the sense of, the way we have traditionally understood in our foreign policy establishment as mediation on issues. This is not, this happened in Kargil. When Pakistan, July 4th, Nawaz Sharif was called to the White House when nothing happens except barbecues in Washington, and he was told to back off. And so this is not really the issue. The issue is there is no mediation. As far as talks are concerned, I think the administration, the US administration, has sort of extended its, wishful thinking beyond a point of, a reality out there. So I think you have to let what Donald Trump has said, let it go over your left shoulder. It doesn't change a thing. And we have to get back to the multiplicity of actors in the US administration to get our message back on track.
You're saying you've got to get the message back on track, but TCA Raghavan, either way, every time Donald Trump says this, isn't it embarrassing that you've got a US president who, first of all, tweets the ceasefire, virtually taking credit for it, then refers to Kashmir as this 1,000-year conflict and offers to mediate? Are we to simply ignore, or as Navtej Sarna says, focus on getting the right message out there? Donald Trump isn't talking about terror. We are the victims, and he seems to be equating Pakistan and us in every statement he makes. How do you deal with him?
I think we have to focus on our priorities. In the course of the last few weeks, we have sent two very important messages to Pakistan. First, by keeping the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, and secondly, by the military and kinetic actions taken after the 7th of May. To my mind, both these very powerful messages registered, and thereafter, if the United States and others played a helpful role in diffusing tensions and stopping further escalation, it was a good thing. The United States has played, as Ambassador Sarna just said, a similar role in de-escalation in the past also. And it has also played a useful role in the past, as for instance, after the Mumbai terrorist attack, in channelizing intense diplomatic pressure on Pakistan. So we shouldn't, our position on third-party mediation on India-Pakistan issues is very clear. But we shouldn't make our principal position on that into such a big thing that we do not allow others to play a helpful role from our point of view otherwise. So I don't think...
No, but in the process, if I may just, if in the process of playing a helpful role, as you call it, isn't Donald Trump ending up equating India and Pakistan? He keeps saying two great nations that I'm dealing with, that he's spoken to both sides. You referred to Kargil, both of you referred to Kargil. Then Clinton sent out the tough message to Nawaz Sharif. Here the problem is he's trying to make it out to be as if both India and Pakistan were asked to pull back.
I think we should have confidence in our own abilities. Symmetries, power symmetries in the subcontinent have changed a lot since Kargil times. We don't need the United States to send Pakistan tough messages now. We are quite capable of doing it ourselves. The point is that the United States has played in the past, and it did so this time too, a useful role in de-escalating a potentially escalatory situation, and that is a good thing. I don't think we should necessarily see that as the thin end of the wedge in leading to a major mediation effort, because on third-party involvement in India-Pakistan issues, our position is very, very clear. So I don't see any scope for that position either changing because of some statements which have been made, or because there was a role played in de-escalating a crisis situation. Somehow that has weakened our position with regard to third-party players. I don't see the two as connected.
But should we get Donald Trump to send a firmer message, Mr. Raghavan, on terror specifically to Pakistan? Why are his statements not mentioning or referring to the terror emanating out of Pakistan?
I'm sure. I think the United States position on Pakistan is well known. It doesn't have to be reiterated on every occasion. And the history of Pakistan-US relations over the past 10 or 15 years really speaks for itself. So I don't think we have to ask them to wave a flag in our favor every time something happens. I think we need to have much more confidence in our own positions and our own capacities.
You know, Navteej Sarna, I just want to put up this, that Trump today is, of course, in the Arab world. He's got Saudi Arabia to make a commitment to invest $600 billion over 4 years in US to sell arms worth $142 billion. He's gone to Qatar and has got Doha to gift him a 400 million Boeing 747 Jumbo, and that there's he's also got the plane is to be transferred to his foundation. 200 billion jet deal with Doha, a branded golf course and real estate project to come up in Qatar. He's now going to UAE, and we are told there'll be a 1.4 billion weapons sale to UAE, and UAE to invest 1.4 trillion over 10 years in the US. And on Syria, he's lifting sanctions on Syria and praising the Syrian president Ahmad al-Shara as young, attractive, tough guy who only till recently was designated a global terrorist by the US in 2013. We seem to be now dealing with a US president, if I may say so, who's a real estate deal maker and not a real serious statesman of any kind.
Well, Rajdeep, what's so surprising about that? I think there are two aspects to Mr. Trump's personality. One is the real estate developer, and the second is the reality show host. So when you combine those two, you get what you're seeing. So I must just come back to a couple of points that Raghavan made. I think one is the mediation aspect, which we have already talked about. And the second thing you mentioned was the hyphenation aspect. I think the hyphenation aspect should not also be taken as seriously because it is momentary and it is superficial. Because the world has to be told again the real India story. We are not in the same league as Pakistan. We are in a different league. And we have to tell countries like Turkey that if you want to do business with us, then you have to behave differently. Therefore, this hyphenation comes by because the world is overworked. The world is crowded with crises. So the minute it's a lazy assumption that here are two nuclear armed guys going at each other, they will spiral out of control. But this hyphenation has been broken before. It will be broken again. So I don't worry too much about that. As far as Mr. Trump's personality and his penchant for deals is concerned, yes, he's a deal maker and a peacemaker. Even the State Department spokesman is actually using the two words interchangeably in a couple of statements at the back. And by the way, on the mediation aspect, the State Department seems to be walking away from it already. The statement yesterday says, commend their decision and rejects, which reflects strength, wisdom, and fortitude. And we urge both sides to maintain direct contacts. Now, this is a walking away from the previous position. So, I think what we need is sustained diplomatic effort. We don't really need to get onto the rooftop and start shouting against Mr. Trump. And nothing that Mr. Trump says is cast in stone. It's what gets him in the morning that makes things move.
So therefore, Mr. Raghavan, if we have the Pakistanis claiming, forget about the military part of it, that I think is very clear that they've suffered heavy losses. That's increasingly becoming clear. But diplomatically, can the Pakistanis use this ceasefire to try and claim that, they want a dialogue with India? Here is Donald Trump talking of dinner between Modi and Sharif. Was that simply a carrot offered to the Pakistanis to get them to sign on to the ceasefire?
I think the Pakistanis found that the ceasefire was in their interest, and they would also see President Trump's tweets to some extent as giving them a little extra satisfaction. But I won't pay too much attention to that, because in the end, Pakistan also has to sell this ceasefire to its people, and therefore their claiming victory is something which is inevitable and natural. We don't have to take it at face value. The important thing, to my mind at least, is despite the sharp erosion in Pakistan-US relations in the past decade and a half, how significant a role the United States still played vis-a-vis Pakistan. That is something quite surprising, because one would have expected that with the major erosion in Pak-US relations, such a role would be more difficult for the US to play. But in fact, Pakistan accepted that role very readily, and in fact with great eagerness. I think that is a significant development, and we shouldn't underestimate it.
Okay, let me give Navtej Mr. Sarna, a final word. Mr. Sarna, therefore, do you believe that India now needs to aggressively go and make a pitch across the world to explain to the world that we are the victims, Pakistan the perpetrator? Do we need to do a bit more in that regard, in your view, or not?
I don't think we need to do anything in a sense of panic or desperation. I mean, this is part of noble diplomatic work. But clearly, what we have to do is to make sure that the message stays on terror and terror alone, and doesn't get diluted into other things. And that is just a nuancing of our messaging, which has already been there. But we are working across the board, whether it is FATF, whether it is other institutions, whether it is the UN Security Council. I think the message has to go back. Listen, this was not a conflict between two nuclear armed countries just because we don't like each other. This was a retaliation to a terror attack from a country which supports the institution of terror as an instrument of state power. And that is the message which has been consistent, and I think it should continue. But if there have been particular incidents, particular countries with whom we need to rub this message in again, then we should do so.
Okay. Navtej Sarna and Mr. Raghavan, I appreciate two very fine voices joining me and giving us a sense and putting Trump's comments in some kind of context. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. Earlier also, I spoke to a very special guest. Michael Kugelman is one of the leading South Asia analysts based in the United States. Michael, one of the vexed issues thrown up by this India-Pakistan conflict continues to be the role of America and the Trump administration. Trump even going to the extent of suggesting it was pressure by the United States, including the carrot of trade talks, that was responsible for stopping the fighting. How should we read Donald Trump's role in this entire conflict and that of the US administration, Michael Kugelman?
Well, I think that President Trump is someone who likes to place himself at the center of events like this. He likes to be projected as someone who can broker peace in a very prominent way. And that might, I think, overstate what actually happened in terms of the nature of the U.S. involvement. It's very clear that U.S. officials did intervene diplomatically to push the two sides to de-escalate and indeed push for a ceasefire. But I think that one might argue that the way in which the president described the U.S. role might overstate the role and the actions of the Indians and the Pakistanis themselves.
Is it, though, Michael, just Donald Trump being true to form and, as you said, keeping himself at the center of issues? Or is there even a grain of truth when he starts speaking about offering to mediate, settle the Kashmir issue? Is this a president who likes to play to the gallery and put himself above the din of the rest?
No, I mean, I think that we need to acknowledge that there was a significant level of U.S. involvement. And, there's been so much focus on how the U.S. had signaled early on in the crisis that it would be aloof and that it would play a hands-off role. The fact that, J.D. Vance had said that, the U.S. won't get involved in other people's wars. But the message from U.S. officials throughout the crisis was de-escalation, pushing for de-escalation. And Marco Rubio was very engaged on very high levels. He was in touch with his counterparts in India and Pakistan several times over the course of the crisis. And my understanding is that Rubio himself, along with J.D. Vance, had a number of conversations with counterparts in India and Pakistan, and were in a position to encourage the two sides to look toward a ceasefire. But I would also make this point. By the time the crisis had reached the point it did, when you had both countries launching drones and missiles onto each other's territory and hitting military targets, by that point, I would argue that both India and Pakistan actually had arrived at a point where they could claim victory and essentially call it a day, because they could tell their publics that, look, we had inflicted significant damage on each side. We had sent strong messages to the other side. And in that sense, when U.S. officials began getting involved in pushing for the ceasefire, one could argue that they were pushing at an open door, in the sense that maybe there was already a willingness on the part of the Indians and Pakistanis to talk amongst themselves toward a ceasefire.
But let's look at the steps ahead now, Michael. During his statements, Mr. Rubio has said this is not only a ceasefire, but India and Pakistan have agreed to talk on a broad set of issues. Now, remember, a dialogue between the two countries has been frozen in recent years. Do you believe that the Americans can actually will push for a dialogue at some neutral place? Because India has made it very clear, we will only talk on terror and on Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That's what Prime Minister Modi very clearly said in his speech.
I mean, my sense is that the Americans concluded that they might have to include language like that in order to get the Pakistanis to agree to a ceasefire, because clearly that's something that the Pakistanis would be much more inclined to do than the Indians. I mean, as you indicate, there wouldn't appear to be any desire on the part of India to hold talks with Pakistan, and that was reiterated, I think, in the Prime Minister Modi's speech. And so I would not place too much stock in that. And indeed, I mean, it was only the Americans that put that out there. It was only Rubio in his tweet where he talked about that possibility. I don't really think that we should take that very seriously.
There's one other concern, Michael Kugelman, but that by their statements, the nature of Trump's statements, the United States is actually re-hyphenating India with Pakistan. Now, do you really believe that Washington is going to equate India and Pakistan? Surely India is on a different plane. How can one equate the perpetrator of terror, i.e. Pakistan, with India, which has suffered as a result of Pakistan-sponsored terror?
Right, exactly. I mean, we've seen in recent years that the policy of the U.S. is not to hyphenate. There's been a significant level of dehyphenization, particularly as the U.S.-India partnership has really taken off in a big way. And in that sense, again, I wouldn't place too much stock in some of these comments that we've heard recently from President Trump, and that includes his comment that he'd like to seek a solution for Kashmir. I do not think that reflected policy. I think it was just a case of him understanding that this is a difficult challenge, and that maybe he should be the one that tries to make an attempt at trying to encourage the sides to push forward on resolving it, not maybe understanding the context, the very complex context, as well as the geopolitical aspects of this. So I don't think that we should take President Trump's comment that very seriously at all, and clearly nothing is going to come of it.
Let me turn to something, though, Michael, that perhaps we should all take seriously. Given what you've seen that's happened in the last couple of weeks between India and Pakistan, and India has been very careful, not even calling it a ceasefire, but an understanding with Pakistan, have the events of the last few weeks only shown what a dangerous place the subcontinent can be? And do you really believe that the danger clouds have passed us by, or could we be heading for more difficult times, given that India has implicitly said now that every act of terror will be treated effectively as an act of war?
I think that there's the trajectory here for India-Pakistan relations is not a very positive one, which is a bit ironic in that really for the last 4+ years, India-Pakistan relations had been relatively stable following the LOC truce in early 2021. But the fact that we now see that both countries are very willing and comfortable to use significant levels of limited force under the nuclear umbrella, I think that's concerning. That suggests the possibilities of escalation are high. And also the ceasefire it will be fragile. I mean, ceasefires by definition are meant to be temporary, but given the comments we heard from Prime Minister Modi in his speech yesterday, really an emphasis on how this is all very temporary, and it's just a matter of time before things could pick up again. And on the Pakistani side, that clearly will be seen as a provocation. The very fact that Prime Minister Modi essentially said that this is a temporary thing and it could pick up again. So, and I would also add that the weaponry that was used in this most recent crisis was very advanced. You had drones being used, and it appears that both sides have now been able to diversify their sources of arms suppliers so that you have both countries in a position to fill the gaps in their indigenous defense production to get really high-powered weaponry that can really move the needle forward in terms of strengthening their own capabilities. The Pakistanis were using Chinese-made weaponry, and it appears Turkish weaponry as well.
One final question, Michael. Given, as you say, that we could be heading for unstable times, do you see the United States playing a greater role, given the fact that in general the Trump administration has largely taken a more inward-looking policy? Do you believe that if the situation remains fraught, does Washington actually want to play a greater role in the subcontinent at all?
Well, I mean, as you know, I mean, the historical pattern for U.S. policy is that it really stays away, so to speak, from the India-Pakistan relationship. I mean, it has a strong interest in the relationship being workable, but generally speaking, it's not trying to involve itself in the relationship unless and until you have an actual crisis. And I suspect that will continue, though I do think that, the last few days will be a lesson to officials in Washington that even though the strategic focus of the Trump administration in its first few months in power has been in other areas, right? Whether you're talking about Gaza or Ukraine or areas closer to the U.S., or China, that it's important to keep an eye on what's happening on the subcontinent. So that's not to suggest that you're going to see more active involvement, active mediation by the U.S., but I do think that there will be more of a strategic focus on the region than there might have otherwise been had this crisis not exploded.
Michael Kugelman, for setting us in context where you believe the Trump administration stands on the Indo-Pak conflict. I appreciate you joining me there from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. We've been mentioning Turkey more than once in the conversations we've just had with both our diplomats as well as with Michael. As tensions simmer between India and Pakistan, the Turkey connection, once a recipient of India's humanitarian aid during the earthquake in 2023, is now seen to have openly sided with Pakistan during the conflict. Hundreds of Indian tourists, as a retaliatory measure, have now decided to cancel their summer trip to Turkey. Bookings have sharply declined by 60% in just the last 1 week. And even Apple exports are being stopped, we are told, to Turkey. Take a look at why Turkey finds itself in the crosshairs.
Pakistan has a new all-weather ally. Turkey sent hundreds of drones, military equipment and even military personnel to help Pakistan fight India. Latest reports have confirmed the death of at least 2 Turkish drone operators in Indian airstrikes on Pakistan.
You can see some quadcopters and you can see one odd Sonka drone hanging by the wire. All these have been brought down by our trained crew and air defense systems.
The Yiha drones are of Turkish origin.
The Turkey-Pakistan tango has sparked massive anger in India. The chorus to boycott Turkish products is hitting fever pitch.
साहिबाद मंडी ने तो बिल्कुल बायकॉट कर दिया है टर्की के जो भी माल आ रहे हैं हमारे हिंदुस्तान को उन लोगों से व्यापार बंद कर देना चाहिए और तुर्की का भी बायकॉट करना चाहिए.
Indian tourists are shunning Turkey and another Pakistan ally, Azerbaijan. What has angered Indians is the fact that Turkey is acting against a country that helped them in their hour of need. India had stood by Turkey during the 2023 earthquake, launching Operation Sindoor and supplying relief material to tide over the humanitarian crisis. Thousands had died in the quake that crippled Turkey and Syria. India also had trade ties with Turkey. In 2024-25, India exports to Turkey stood at $5.2 billion, which was down from $6.65 billion in 2023-24. This accounts for less than 1.5% of India's total exports. Imports from Turkey were worth $2.84 billion in 2024-25 compared to $3.78 billion in 2023-24, just 0.5% of India's total imports. Turkey received around 62.2 million foreign tourists in 2024, with approximately 300,000 coming from India.
Boycott Turkey is trending online right now. The results are many other travel agents have followed our suit, and the results are 22% bookings are cancelled by passengers themselves for Turkey.
Turkey has been once again an ally of Pakistan, not only training but implicating and trying to damage Indian air bases and Indian civilians. 2 personnel have been killed. More than 350 Turkish drones were directed towards India. This is Shivani Sharma with camera person Pawan Kumar for India Today from New Delhi.
Let's turn to tonight's Get Real India story that comes from Bihar. A village got a road overnight because Chief Minister Nitish Kumar was visiting the family of a BSF Jawan killed in Pakistani shelling. Take a look at our Get Real India story.
All hands on the deck. A road is being built on war footing. These are the images from Narayanpur village, home to BSF Sub-Inspector Mohammad Imtiaz, who died in Pakistan shelling in Jammu and Kashmir. There was no Pakka road here on Monday when the village bid farewell to the country's brave son. Work on the road began when Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar decided to visit Imtiaz family.
ये जो सड़क बनी है कब बनी है सड़क ये?
कल से काम चल रहा है।
जब से मुख्यमंत्री के आने के कार्यक्रम की घोषणा हुई है।
जी।
पहले इस सड़क की स्थिति क्या थी?
पहले थोड़ी मोड़ी गड्डी वड्डी थी।
और आगे भी वो मिट्टी उट्टी डाल के सड़क बनाया जा रहा है वहाँ पे।
हाँ तो यहाँ से वहाँ तक सब रोड बनाया जा रहा है। पहले तो
मुख्यमंत्री नहीं आते तो सड़क
नहीं बनता।
बार-बार आप लोगों से कहा जा रहा है।
All the hard work paid off. The road was ready in record time for the visit of Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, Deputy Chief Minister Samrat Chaudhary, Leader of Opposition Tejasvi Yadav and other VIPs on Tuesday. The Chief Minister handed over a cheque of 50 lakh rupees and made other assurances.
करीब 10 मिनट तक बैठे थे और सबसे पहले समझाए हैं उनको, सांत्वना दिए थे और जो उनको ऐसे लगा कि हम इतना कर सकते हैं और हमारी तरफ से भी था कि अब हम लोग के पास जो हमारे मेन थे एक होते हैं मेंबर, वो जो थे उनसे सब कुछ था, अब नहीं रहे उनकी उसकी जगह पे कुछ थोड़ा सा बात हुई कि हमारे लिए कुछ किया जाए।
मेरे भाई तो वीर गति को प्राप्त हो गए, शहादत उनकी हो गई, तो बोले उनके नाम के एक हॉस्पिटल का ये किया जाए कि गांव में इससे सुविधा नहीं है, अगल बगल कई गांव में।
The road built for the comfort of Netas will now remind villagers of Mohammad Imtiaz's sacrifice for his country. With Alok Kumar Jaiswal, Bureau Report, India Today.
A story that tells you all about India's darker side. A road is built overnight because the Chief Minister is coming. Let's turn to our ground report tonight, which comes from Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch district, where a 50-year-old ex-serviceman, Amarjeet Singh, lost his life on the 7th of May. He was killed in the unprovoked artillery shelling by Pakistani forces. India Today's Kamaljeet Sandhu brings you the report of a family's unimaginable loss. Take a look.
This is what is left of Amarjit Singh Fauji's home in Kamakhan area of Poonch. A roof blown apart, walls damaged by shrapnel, and a family shattered. 50-year-old Amarjit Singh, a former territorial army Jawan, was inside when a mortar shell fired by Pakistani forces landed on his house on May 7th. The splinters pierced his lungs and heart. He was rushed to the hospital but did not make it.
7:30 पौने 8 के बीच में जब शेल आया पाकिस्तान से, यहाँ पर शेल लगा। यहाँ पर जब शेल लगा तो उस शेल की जो लास्ट एक चकली होती है, जो लास्ट एक वाइंडिंग करने वाला उसका होता है, वो बाकी का जो हिस्सा था वो ऊपर ब्लास्ट हो गया, तो वो उसने लग गया यहाँ पर, इधर से थोड़ा जा 2 गेज सुपरफिशियल थे, तो एक बड़ा टीप चला गया जो लंग्स को रैप्चर कर गया, हार्ट्स को रैप्चर कर गया।
Amarjit has served the nation for 18 years before returning to civilian life. But even in peace, the war caught up with him. His 13-year-old son, Amanpreet, and 7-year-old daughter, Gurshan Ghat, are still waiting for answers.
जब मेरे पापा फौज में थे तब उन्होंने किसी को नहीं मारा था, मेरे पापा को क्यों मारा? मेरे को मेरे पापा चाहिए.
Amarjit's wife, Harpreet Kaur, is devastated. Says the ceasefire has no meaning now.
हमारे लिए क्या ceasefire? जब हमारा सब कुछ खत्म हो गया, क्या ceasefire तो क्या?
Amarjit Singh was one of the 12 civilians killed in the Poonch and Tangadhar sectors that day due to Pakistani shelling. His death is a grim reminder that even in times of supposed peace, the border remains a battlefield. With Kamaljit Sandhu from Poonch in Jammu and Kashmir, Bureau Report, India Today.
Tragic, tragic, tragic. Okay, I want to leave you with our image of the day. India has got a new Chief Justice today, and he has created a slice of history. Justice B.R. Gavai, who took oath today as Chief Justice, became the first neo-Buddhist Ambedkarite in that role. Justice Bhushan Ramakrishna Gavai, sworn in as the 52nd Chief Justice of India, the second from the Dalit community to ascend to the nation's highest judicial office. In his home, he has a picture of Baba Sahib Ambedkar prominently displayed. Baba Sahib would believe that his constitutional dream of creating a social equality, society based on social equality, has at least seen a Dalit rise to that post yet again for the second time in the country's history. I leave it there, and we wish Mr. Gavai all the very best. He takes office in tough times. The Constitution must be protected above Parliament or any individual. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. News without the noise. Bye for now.